Thank you. Now, I would like to call on days Professor Rashid Shaz, Director of CP to welcome our chief guest, Professor Geoffrey Nash. Shaz.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. It's a great occasion for us to welcome Professor Nash and his wife. He was here on the campus for, I think, a couple of weeks or so, and he has been very kind that he made a short visit to the beach course. I welcome him not as simply as an academic, as a professor of English, but also more as an intellectual and a brother in faith. I remember a few years ago, I had a question from Lord Carey of Clifton, the former Archbishop, and he asked me that where would you place us? Are we part of the Ummah Muslimah or not? It was a very unusual question from one of the topmost personalities of Protestant Church. And I wrote to him a very detailed reply, and that article was published later on futureislam.com, The Legacy of Abraham. And I told him in very plain terms that as a reader of the Quran, as a student of the Quran, the word Ummah Muslimah encompasses all those, the followers of Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and his progeny, the progeny of Abraham. So all those who are the submitters to God, I cannot kick them out. This is the Quranic understanding of Ummah Muslimah, the conglomeration of faith. And nowhere in the Quran we find Ummah Muhammadiyah, we have come to a pass where the Ummah Muhammadiyah has been actually converted into a sort of what we call Ummah Muslimah has been converted into Ummah Muhammadiyah. This word doesn't occur anywhere. And we are told in many places in the Quran that وَمَا كَانَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ يَهُودِيًا وَلَا نَصْرَانِيًا وَلَكِنْ كَانَ حَنِيفًا مُسْلِمًا. Abraham was neither a Jew nor a Christian, but he was a submitter per se. Muslim Hanif, he was a submitter per se. And this is the identity that we need to acquire. At so many other places we are told that this is Sibghatullah, the color of God, and we are supposed to acquire the color of God. And which color would be better than the color of God? And I remember one of the greatest scholars, Cantwell Smith, who wrote that in Arabic I cannot say Lastu bi Muslim, because if I say that means I say I am not a submitter, but I am a submitter very much in Christian tradition. But in English I can say I am not a Muslim, because when I say Muslim, it means that I don't belong to a community which has taken up this identity or a name. So if we go through, turn over the pages of the Quran, we find that we are sitting with people who are coming from the same tradition, and in Quranic explaining a little more, they are people of the book. That means we have a sort of very much ideological affinity, and we are asked that they should always be taken on board on any big project. Kalmatun sawa'an baynana wa baynakum. The common word that we share with the Jews and with the Christians. But unfortunately, the 20th century politics, and especially after the First World War, and more reinforced after the Second World War and the legacy of these two devastating wars, that the believing nations have come to a point where they feel that they have very different agendas. I think now more people are realizing it is actually the onus is on us, Muslims, that we have been a big failure in projecting Islam, the message of God, the same message that came to Prophet Jesus, Prophet Moses, and other prophets of God. So we have not been in a position to project that this message is not actually, we do not have a monopoly on this message, but this belongs to every believing nation on this planet. And I am very glad this morning that I am welcoming two great souls to the bridge course. And sir, you are here with a group of students who are coming from the religious seminaries of India. Unfortunately, not only in today's India but the world outside, there is no single institution which teaches Islam per se, or Islam itself, the original message of God. All these institutions are working under some sort of, under the influence of this sect or that sect. Sect is actually antithesis of Islam, and Quran calls it shirk. So unfortunately this is the situation. Last year I was speaking in theology department, and a group of people came from Mercer universities, the Baptist University in America. And when I told them that unfortunately this is the situation, that we do not have a single institution that can claim that we study Islam as such. Well, they study Islam but from certain perspective, whether they belong to a Deobandi school or a Barelvi school or Shia school or Sunni school. These are later developments, have nothing to do with Islam. This is the history of Islam, not message, and we must differentiate the two. The message is uncompromising, but the history goes on, our understanding in different periods of history go on changing. We grow, and with us the message grows, the understanding of the message grows, but the essence of the message remains same. So what Jesus preached, what Muhammad preached, Moses preached, other prophets, the essence was same. So we share a sort of bond. When Professor Nash is here and his wife is here, we feel as if a sort of family reunion. People of same Abrahamic tradition coming to meet each other. And we have no hesitation to say that in Christianity it happened quite late, that in 1963 or 64, when they have Nostra Aetate, and they say that the salvation is open outside the Christian church. But in Islam we had a very clear perception from the very beginning that the Jews and the Christians and the Sabians and all those who believe in God and the day of judgment, so they will find that they will not grieve on the day of judgment. Things are very clear. But it is only later interpretation that created problems, and we found ourselves in a situation that the salvation is denied to other people who were supposed to be on board with us. So when Islam came, we never thought that Christians and the Muslims, they are outside our social bondage, because we found that we call them very much part of the same group. We looked at them as faith communities, and we found that we share with them a tradition, a heritage, and that is why it was allowed for us to socialize with them, to take Christian and Jewish daughters in marriages. And there are, in our history it's full of examples that some of the great Sahabas, they had their wives, the Christians and the Jewish wives, in their homes. Not that they were converted, no. They were allowed their freedom. because that was the understanding that they are not religious other. They are very much part of the Ummah Muslimah. This has to open up again. It only when it came later that the fuqaha intervened, and they say that these were actually some administrative reasons. For example, when you ask me that if it is allowed to build a church in Saudi Arabia, I say, well, Islam nowhere it prohibits. But there could be an administrative reason not to allow. There may be administrative sensibilities. This is another issue. And these administrative sensibilities can go away with the passage of time, or can be stronger. Can be both situations. So we should not mix the two. There are some administrative issues, administrative decisions that the fuqaha of the various periods they made, and there is a Quranic understanding, Quranic injunction, and a Quranic dictate. The Quranic dictate is supreme. It has to stay for all time to come. And the fuqaha's understanding can be questioned, can be rolled back. Unfortunately, our interpreters of Islam, for quite some time, they have been mixing the two, the history and the message. And that has created a big problem. I personally feel that we are at a point of history when capitalism has taken over, when the man on this planet has no free space, no fresh air to breathe, because you are in chain of this system. So who will rescue the humanity today? Of course, people of faith. The faith communities together. No single community can do this. There are certain issues. For example, if you want to keep a control on environment, a single human being cannot do anything unless there is an understanding and cooperation of the other people. So all these mega projects or mega issues can only be solved by, with the efforts of a sort of common project. And this is where the word comes, kalma sawa. Kalma sawa is a very, it's a very big, it's a wide meaning, and it can encompasses so many issues. But our theologians have only marked it for whether someone believes in God, or in the day of judgment, or he is not associating anybody with God. But it's I think that it's have very wide sense. This bridge course, when we started, the idea was that Islam has never been on the margin, or the believing nations have not to be on the margin. They are the natural leaders of this world. But unfortunately, the religious seminaries, while Oxford, Cambridge, they started as religious seminaries and transformed into major universities of the world. This has not been the story in the Muslim world. So people coming from the religious seminaries, they feel as if they are on the margin, and they have to be on the margin for all of their life. We started opening an avenue for them, and this bridge course was a great success. 5th batch is now with us. You have seen some of and Professor Nash was very appreciative of this effort. What is happening here, it's not only transformation in the lives of the people, that people who would have been fetching otherwise a job of 10,000-15,000 rupees, they are aspiring to become at par with anybody. But there has been a transformation in their thinking. In initial days, when they come from various sectarian institutions, and they have reservations about each other, because this is how they are trained. Now here at the bridge course, they are taught a special course we call is interfaith and intrafaith understanding. They start questioning themselves, तशरीफ लाएं, आ जाइए। So they start questioning now that, for example, what is Islam? Who is a Muslim? We have a special course on conceptual writing where very difficult concepts are, students are given to write on short notes on concepts. So when they start discovering what is Islam, who is a Muslim, the definition of a Muslim, they feel in the beginning that each of them has a very different definition of Islam. Then they come to the commonalities, and at the end they discover that to be a Muslim or to be a submitter has a very, I mean, it cannot be, it is not a matter of identity. They discover that it is not identity to be a Muslim, but it is an attitude, the attitude of submission. And by the time they leave the bridge course, I will tell you a story of some of the students. Some of them are here. They are coming from very conservative Sunni madrasas, and some of them are now studying Shia theology. I asked some of them that why. He said, because we know our theology, Sunni theology, we have learned a lot about that in madrasas. Now we want to see that how theology, I mean, the theological perspectives in other traditions. So if that is actually the, the opening up of their mind, I think that the bridge course has achieved its objective. So the first thing is that to rebuild the house of Islam. But when we call rebuilding the house of Islam, Islam has a very, very wide meaning. And it cannot leave aside our brothers in faith in Christian and Jewish traditions especially. There was a time in Islamic history when scholars from central land of Islam would arrive in India, and they would find that Hindus too, by virtue of being a faith community and believing in God and day of judgment and so on and so forth, they are a sort of people of the book. So they use the term Shibh Ahl Kitab. So that was actually the original Islamic thinking, the opening of the Muslim mind. Now we are experiencing a sort of closing of the Muslim mind, but with the bridge course, I think a new light has come up. This was a sort of some brief introduction, sir, of this course, and we would be very happy and honored to listen from you. And our friend Professor Ali Muhammad Naqvi Sahab is here. He is so kind to us that when on such occasions we invite him, he have various, other, he forgives other of his engagements. So he is here, and he will also, inshallah, in the end, have a few words. Thank you, sir, for visiting us, and please share with us and enlighten our students and us. Thank you.